And good afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026, and the time is 2:30 p.m. Will the Committee on Housing, Homelessness, and Parks meeting please come to order? I'd like to welcome our committee members, Committee Vice Chair Toba, Council Members Cordero, Nishimoto, Wire. With us, we also have Councilmember Dos Santos Tam and Kiaʻāina, and anyone else who would like to join us. Pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute, Section 92-3.7, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda, when each item is taken up in two ways, in person in the council chamber and remotely. Before testifying, each person shall state their name for the record and will be limited to a one-minute presentation on each item. All persons who register to testify in person will be called upon first. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. Once in-person testimony has concluded, I will proceed to remote testimony via video conference or phone. When I call your name or the last three digits of your phone number, please follow the prompt to unmute. As both English and Olelo Hawaii are the official languages of the state of Hawaii pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii Constitution and HRS Section 1-13, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires that all votes at a remote meeting be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections. If there are any, then I will call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off or silence all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Members, please note that item number 8, Bill 19-2026 on page 17 of the agenda has been canceled and will not be considered. Thank you. Okay, members, this is the format of the meeting. We're going to take some gift resolutions. I'm going to go through a few parks bills, housing bills, and then we do have a presentation by Department of Housing and Land Management, so let's be mindful of the time. For action, items 1 through 3, I'm going to take these agenda items together since they relate to gifts to the city on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation. I will take testimony on all 3 items together, and the votes will be taken individually. Item number 1, Resolution 26-139, accepting a monetary gift of $5,000 to the city from Friends of Hawaii Charities for the upkeep maintenance of Kahala Community Park. Item number 2, Resolution 26-141, accepting a monetary gift of $5,000 to the city from WellCare to help offset the operational costs of the Neil S. Blaisdell Center Exhibition Hall for the 55th Annual Senior Citizens Valentine Dance that was held on February 6, 2026, and it was a great event. Item number 3, Resolution 26-148, accepting a monetary gift of $6,750.67 to the city from Shinyo and Hawaii for the upkeep and maintenance of Ala Moana Regional Park. With us, we have Director Laura Thielen, Director of Parks and Recreation. And we'll have Kehaupu, Deputy Director, come up and talk with us.
Mahalo, Committee Chair Tupola, and honorable members of the Council, Kehaupu, Deputy Director of DPR. We would just like to thank the Friends of Hawaii Charities, WellCare, and Shinyo and Hawaii for their generous donations to the department, and we appreciate Chair and the Council's support of these donation resolutions. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. We couldn't do it without these donors. We thank you very much. Clerks, are there any in-person or registered testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Are there any persons unregistered, online, or in the chambers wishing to testify on these items?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you so much. Members, are there any discussions or questions? Seeing none, the Chair recommends that Resolution 26-139 be reported out for adoption. Any objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. The Chair recommends that Resolution 26-141 be reported out for adoption. Any objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Lastly, the Chair recommends that Resolution 26-148 be reported out for adoption. Any objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you, committee members and council members. Item number 4, Bill 33, relating to funds, amending provisions related to the City and County of Honolulu funds. Members, to recap, on March 31st, 2026, this committee approved a CD1 version of this bill, which is posted on the agenda, and action was postponed. We posted 2 proposed CD1s on the agenda for consideration. OCS 2026-038/6/16/2026, 9:38 a.m. submitted by Councilmember Kiaʻāina, and then at 10:17 a.m. I submitted a CD1 as well. The amendments are both listed on the agenda. Councilmember Kiaʻāina, would you like to have a few words in regards to your proposal?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Chair Tupola, for advancing this measure as well as the other measure that has been agendized, because it's clear to me that we all need to look at ways to help how to help the Department of Parks and Recreation. So with regard to this specific measure, but I believe your CD1 is addressing my concerns, and so I will not be moving forward my CD1. But my concerns, of course, was with regard to the transient accommodation tax and a sliver of the funds that addresses the impacts to natural resources from tourism. I just felt that that should be a freestanding bill, although the funds that are being established in the other bill should be able to receive it. And oh, I'm sorry, it might be this bill. So that's all. I just think that you have your CD1 addresses it. I look forward to continuing to work on this and the other measure as we move through the process. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And committee members, this bill will be coming back to committee. So if you do have any further comments or CDs, please, talk to my office, or you can file a CD with us, either director or deputy, if you guys want to just, I guess, recover. We did this a while ago, but just maybe share again the importance of this particular bill and why we think that it's going to help our parks. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you very much, Committee Chair Tupola and members of the committee, Laura Thielen, on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation. So as we discussed at the original hearing, the intention behind creating special funds for what is known as Parks Maintenance and Recreation Division, which is the grounds maintenance and the recreation programs that are being done, as well as a second special fund for botanical gardens and urban forestry, is so that revenues designated for use for those purposes would remain in a special fund and they would not lapse after a single year. They would be in a revolving fund. The intention behind this is to make sure that we are expending the monies each year on planned activities and maintenance. But sometimes, as you know, contracts don't get done in a single year. And so rather than having the funds lapse and having to come back, we would be able to put that into the budget the next year and continue with the funds. I do want to touch on just 2 items that were at issue at the last hearing. So one is the TAT revenue. The original bill that was posted did have a set amount of the TAT revenue designated to go into each of the 2 new special funds. This CD1 version that was put out by Councilwoman Tupola, we assisted in making revisions to it. So the only thing it says is that any portion of revenues collected from the TAT, which are designated to PMRS or the urban forestry and botanical gardens, would go to those special funds. It does not mandate an amount of the TAT, nor does it designate any specific amount. It's just that if TAT is allocated to the department, it would go to the special fund and not the general fund in the budget. And then the second item that I wanted to touch upon is the YPO and Corp special funds. So apparently this request came in from the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services. There is a fair amount of administrative work to manage special funds. So then rather than adding new special funds and overwhelming them, what they asked is that we repurpose the existing 2 special funds, one for YPO Soccer Complex and one for Central Oahu Regional Park, turn those into the new special funds for PMRS and Botanical Gardens. And then as you can see at the end of the bill, the monies that are in the accounts for YPO and Corp will be moved into accounts within the PMRS special fund, and be limited for the park use for those parks. And the bill does require an annual accounting, so the revenues that go into those accounts for YPO and Corp will be part of the accounting for the park special fund, and we'll be able to monitor the revenues that come in and the expenditures that go out for YPO and Corp. There is no intention of taking those funds away or to delegate them to any other purpose.
Thank you so much, Director. I just want to say I appreciate her department. We're trying to work as closely as possible because the execution of this could mean that we get grass trimmed regularly. And that's really what we want, because the issue with us not being able to get a contract going because every year we renew it, it's actually a bigger maintenance issue than people understand. And for us to have parks that people enjoy and to get less calls of complaints, this actually will help with that. And so I am excited that we're moving it forward today, and again, it'll come back to committee, but the revisions that I did put forward were actually decided by DPR as well as input from BFS. Thank you, Director. Council members, any question for the Director? Okay. Clerks, are there any registered in-person or online testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you so much. Are there any unregistered online or in-person people wishing to testify in the chambers?
Chair, there are none.
No? Okay, perfect. All right, the chair recommends that Bill 33, 2026 be amended to the posted proposed CD1 as identified OCS 2026-02888/5/14/2026 10:17 a.m., which would be the CD that I posted. Are there any reservations, objections? Hearing none, so ordered. The chair then recommends that Bill 33, 2026, CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduled of a public hearing pursuant to its consecutive referral to be referred to the Committee on Budget. Any further discussions, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you very much, committee members and council members. Item number 5. Bill 30, relating to public parks, amending provisions in the revised ordinances of Honolulu 2021 relating to the use of city public parks for farmers markets. Members, to recap, on March 31st, 2026, this committee approved the CD1 version of this bill, which is posted on the agenda, and action was postponed. We posted a proposed CD1 on the agenda identified as OCS 2026-0202/4/15/2026, 12:50 p.m., and the amendments are also listed on the agenda. With us, we have the Director of Department of Parks, Director Thielen.
Thank you, committee members. Laura Thielen on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation. The amendments are ones that are really helping with the housekeeping and managing of the permits. The primary amendment that we had asked to be put in is that any farmers markets approved under this would be subject to the department's existing recreation rules. And the reason that's important is it allows us to be able to apply those requirements, like if you need HPD or if you need porta potties for the event or if you need other things. We have existing rules for that. We would not have to pass new rules for it. And so this would allow us to be able to manage these operations. And then we did also have the requirement in here that it be nonprofit organizations, not for-profit, as well as that these would be suitable in parks that are not super busy or summer fun sites, because farmers markets need to be there week after week in order to generate a market. So not in a district park, not in a very busy park, and also not in a park where we're currently doing the People's Open Market, where it would be competition for those existing ones. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Director. For all of those who remember in the last hearing, some of those issues were brought up and they have been addressed. We want to make sure that our park spaces are activated, especially because a lot of people really love our parks, and for those parks that aren't heavily used, we face a lot of issues with maintenance and vandalism. So I think this is actually going to be great. So I appreciate the department's support on this. Council members, any questions for the director? Seeing none. Clerks, are there any registered in-person or online testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Are there any unregistered online testifiers?
Chair, I see Angela Young.
Okay, we'll take Angela Melody Young. Anyone else wishing to testify, please approach the podium. Go ahead.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young testifying on behalf of CARES. I'm in favor of this bill. And then I think just to provide a comment, is that if the bill is to be inclusive of companies, then it would be more inclusive of markets. For example, the Made in Hawaii Festival is a nonprofit, but it does have a partnership with the state DBED office. And so that's for, activating the business development and then to support the farmers and the agricultural industries and the fashion designers, the musicians, the artists, and the crafters in the locally made and crafted and sourced market industry. So there are other markets that are companies and that are not nonprofits. And so I think it would be ideal to include companies, and also location is key. There was a company that
Thank you so
rented
much
out
for
the
your
Blaisdell
testimony.
Center, and it's a for-profit company.
Thank
So
you.
any way to help them make money, that'd be great.
Thank you very much. Seeing no questions for the testifier, council members, we are in discussion. Seeing no discussion, the chair recommends that Bill 30, 2026 be amended to the posted proposed CD1 identified as OCS 2026-0202/4/15/2026, 12:50 p.m. Are there any objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. The bill is now amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 30, 2026 CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any further discussion, objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you, committee members. Item number 6, Bill 31, relating to cultural sites in public parks, amending provisions in the revised ordinances of Honolulu 2021 related to cultural sites in public parks by requiring Director of Parks and Recreation to establish an important cultural resource area program. Members, we posted a proposed CD1 on the agenda identified as OCS 2026-0293/5/15/2026, 1:15 p.m., and the amendments are listed on the agenda. With us, we have Deputy Director Kiaʻāina Pu'u.
Mahalo, Chair and members of the council. So DPR supports the amendments and this bill in its current revised form, and we'd just like to thank Committee Chair Tupola and her staff for support in working with us on this.
Do you know possibly how many cultural sites? I think I asked the last time. Do we know? I know that I have in my district, but is it prevalent? Is it not?
So we have several, and they're all also listed with SHPD, and so those are the only cultural sites we currently have. We don't have any under the old definition, the former definition with the city. I would say maybe 12 to 15, maybe more.
12.
I don't want to speculate
Yeah,
because we have buildings as well as sites, land and stuff. Yeah.
I see. Thank you so much. Council members, one of the reasons I did this is because I have a heiau inside the park. So there are various areas where we do have cultural sites, but there are not much. Clerks, are there any testifiers registered online or in person?
Chair, we have one person online.
If we can go ahead with, Carmen Guzman Simpliciano, please proceed. Carmen, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Kalamai. Aloha, I'm Carmen Guzman Simpliciano, co-founder of Kingdom Pathways. I just wanted to say that we support this bill, and we are one of the practitioners that take care of Ku'ilialoa Heiau. And so this bill kind of fills in the gaps of what we've been doing all these years, trying to fix the signage and getting the heiau the attention it needs. So we strongly support this. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. I just want to mahalo you and Joseph for all your help. This bill was actually inspired by both of you. And mahalo for all the years of dedication that you guys have given to that area. We appreciate it so very much. Clerks, any other testifiers not registered in person or online?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. Council members, we're in discussion. Seeing no discussion, the chair recommends that Bill 31, 2026 be amended to the posted proposed CD1 identified as OCS 2026-0293/5/15/2026 at 1:15 p.m. Any objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. The bill is now amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 31, 2026 CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduled for a public hearing. Any further discussion, objections, reservation? Hearing none, so ordered. Item number 7, Bill 32, relating to public parks, recreational facilities, and botanical gardens, amending provisions in the revised ordinances of Honolulu 2021 related to fees and charges for the use of public parks, recreational facilities, and botanical gardens. Members, this also was taken up in March. The committee approved the CD1. We posted that to the agenda, and since there has been 2 proposed CD1s by myself and Councilmember Kiaʻāina. Councilmember Kiaʻāina, would you like a few minutes to explain yours?
Thank you, Chair. As I may have mentioned at the previous hearing, I did have some concerns with regard to whether it would be the City Council or the Department of Parks and Recreation's department to establish via administrative rules increase in fees. I still do have concerns, but I appreciated the conversation that I had with the Director Thielen for why she was doing it. And I believe she also stated that at the end of the day, I was worried sometimes because I'm familiar with administrative processes and the public sometimes are left out, no matter how hard you try. And so I thought, since we do a lot with regard to increase, City Council considers it, that ours was a more transparent process so that people would know exactly what was going on. The director made clear to me that if the City Council ever felt that happened on a proposed rule that went through the process and we felt that we didn't like it or the community didn't have a lot to say, it is possible for us to introduce a measure to override it. So for now, I withdraw my CD1, appreciate the discussion on this, but that was the issue that I put forth before us to consider on which body is appropriate to be considering fee increases.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Kiaʻāina, and for taking the time to speak with the director. We did introduce a CD that finds a middle ground, but I would like to have the director stand and maybe share a little bit with us on what the current proposed CD does and how that could continue to suffice on both sides of the conversation.
Thank you, committee. Again, Laura Thielen on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation. The discussion in front of the council at the last meeting was we listened very closely to it, and I think the points raised by Councilwoman Kiaʻāina were very valid. And so we made some amendments that are in the CD1 version in front of you. First of all, we made it, I can understand why the council wants to make sure that we have a transparent process that goes above and beyond what the state law requires for administrative rulemaking. So we tried to place those amendments into the ordinance so that the department would have to follow this procedure in addition to the lesser standard for the administrative rulemaking. So at the beginning on page 3, what you'll see, and that page covers the botanical gardens, but it has identical language for rules that would amend the parks fees as well. It has a policy statement by the council. In this case, access to botanical gardens, garden facilities, their associated parking lots, and other recreational areas under the jurisdiction of the Department of Parks and Recreation is a fundamental public benefit that must be available to residents of all income levels. As such, the council directs that any fees and charges established by the Director of Parks and Recreation must be set in a manner that is fair, reasonable, and consistent with the city's commitment to equitable access. And then further down on that page and on to page 4, you'll see that it has directives for the department on how to go about rulemaking. So one is that the Department of Directors shall ensure that any fees and charges established do not exceed what is necessary to support the sustainable operation, maintenance, and improvement of facilities and programs. And the director must consider impacts on low and moderate income residents and any barriers to broad community participation that the fees may create. And then on the page 4, what you'll see is that the department is required to provide the city council with no later than 30 days prior to any public hearing on any proposed rules, information that would include identifying the fee or charge to be established or amended, and an explanation of the purpose of the fee or charge and the service, facility, or program to which it applies. It must describe the program outcomes, services, or facilities access the department intends to support or deliver through the fees or charges, including any improvements to or expansions of programs offering or facility access, and explain how the Department of Parks and Recreation considered the affordability for low and moderate income residents, including any planned mitigation measures such as reduced fees, waivers, or free alternatives to the proposed fees. And then lastly, on page 4 and 5, the department is required to submit to the council and the public an annual report which outlines the fee structures that were adopted, lists the programs and services that were provided and expanded under such fees, and then also list any planned changes in the upcoming year relating to fees or charges that would go out. And then I think lastly, the Corporation Council has advised our office that the state delegates authorities to the counties to set taxes or fees. We do not have delegated authorities to set a tax. So any fee would have to be related to the cost of the operation. It could not be something that is intended to generate revenue above and beyond the operational costs. It's not intended to generate a profit. So that language is in the bill as well as in the delegation of authority to the counties.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Council members, any questions for the director? Yeah, I will say, you know, it's very similar to what DCCA does, where every fee they have is directly related to the license that the person is getting. There's no additional revenues generated. We are trying to do this in a way that we can maintain our parks. Everybody wants us to maintain the parks, but they don't understand that there is actually no fees that are charged to maintain that. So Director Thielen and her department have to kind of vie for funds every year alongside other departments that have very, very legitimate, you know, budgetary concerns. So it's a little difficult. So I think this is the best way for us to try to get our parks into better shape by having an ability to not only just have the fund, but have ways that the fund always has generated revenue. So the fund we just voted on, it will have this revenue that we're talking about from the fees. So the two bills are related. Councilmember Kiaʻāina.
Thank you. And thank you, Director, for your explanation. Just moving forward, again, I'm all about examples. And this morning for Bill 78, before budget, I talked about what would happen whether you were parking on the street or went to a garage and you stayed at a restaurant for 3 hours. You could potentially come out and pay $24, right? So that everybody understands that, right? So whatever you could, it would be good to have some tangible examples of a proposed fee. And then I also am interested in the delineation between, groups and then others who are not as organized, right? Who want use to see that they're treated fairly. That's all. I just want to make sure that the fees are proportionate for the applicant seeking the permit.
Thank you. And I do want to, after listening to Kiaʻāina, Councilwoman Kiaʻāina's discussion on that, I did go and pull the existing rules for Waipio Soccer Complex and Central Oahu Regional Park. These are the only places where we do charge fees along with Hans L'Orange. And in those rules that were passed in 2010, they have Type 1 events, Type 2 events that are basically organized by the city and county or co-sponsored by them. Those, no fees. Then they have a fee structure for other events where they have one set of fees for events for youth, a different set for adults, a different amount for non-resident youth, and a different amount for non-resident adults. So I think we would be taking a look at something similar to what's been in place there, which seems to have been working for the past 16 years. I don't anticipate that the fees that we would propose would be at the same level as, these tournament facilities which have dedicated staff and higher operational costs. But that gives you an idea of the categories of fees that have been vetted and are working for a significant period of time.
Thank you for that explanation. I also appreciate your clarification that the fee has to be proportionate to the service given as opposed to simply trying to generate revenue. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Very thorough. Council members, any other questions for the Director? Seeing none, clerks, are there any testifiers registered in person or online?
Chair, there are none.
Are there any unregistered persons in the council chambers or online that would like to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Council members, we are in discussion. Seeing none, the chair recommends that Bill 32, 2026 be amended to the posted proposed CD1 as identified OCS 2026-02905/5/15/2026 7:45 a.m., which is the CD that I posted and is being discussed. Are there any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the bill is now amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 32, 2026 CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduled for public hearing. Any further discussion, objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. That wraps up the parks section of our hearing. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Bill 18, item number 9. As I announced earlier, we are not discussing Bill 19 today. So Bill 18 relating to affordable housing, amending provisions in the revised ordinances of Honolulu 2021 relating to affordable housing, rental housing. Members, to recap, on March 3rd, the committee approved the CD1 version of this bill, which is posted to the agenda, and action was postponed. We posted a proposed CD1 on the agenda identified as OCS 2026-0383/6/15/2026 1:17 p.m. and the amendments are also listed on the agenda. The only two things that we are entertaining to amend in the Bill 7 projects, also known as Chapter 32, is the lot size and the underlying height, which will be 60 feet, or the underlying zoning, whichever is taller. There is no other amendments that are being entertained in this CD. We're going to keep it as simple as possible, as the program itself is a pilot that will be sunsetting in 2030. With us, we have Kevin Auger, Director, Department of Housing and Land Management. Aloha, Director. If you have any comments or any thoughts on Bill 18, please proceed.
Hi, Kevin Auger, Director, Department of Housing and Land Management. Thanks very much, Committee Chair Tupola. We don't have any comments. As we presented, I believe, on May 23rd, we're going to wait back and see what UHERO delivers with respect to their assessment and analysis of Bill 18, and we'll have comments thereafter.
Okay,
Thanks very
sounds
much.
good. Thank you very much. Council members, any questions for the Director? Seeing none. Clerks, are there any online testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Are there any registered in-person testifiers? Yes? I think I have. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I don't want to say it out of order. Go ahead. Oh, you can press the button.
Okay,
Thank you.
got it. Abe Kwok with Mauna Kea Marketplace. Aloha, council members. Representing, I respectfully urge the committees to amend the Bills 18, 2026, proposal CD1, ATU P2, by restoring the unit's density calculations from earlier draft before advance the bill to the second reading. Oahu urgently needs more affordable housing. I currently operate a 38 units affordable housing property approved by you folks and in Chinatown. Since acquiring the property in 2023, it has remained full occupied, and more than 97 individuals and families remains our wait list. The demand of affordable housing are clear and very significant. This demand is one of the reasons that I purchased the Woodfab buildings across the street. Instead of continue operating a 23 units hotel, I choose to convert it into affordable housing. I expect those units to be quickly filled I strongly support restoring the density calculations based on the lot size by 130 or 120 when there's a bus station close by, 2,000 feet. The provision allows more affordable housing units and improve financing opportunities to help make affordable units projected financially feasible. I also support allowing the constructions up to 60 feet or maximum heights permitted by the underlying zoning district, whenever it's greater, to encourage additional buildings. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. I'll address some of your concerns when we go into discussion. Thank you for being here. Mr. Mick?
Aloha, Chair Tupola and committee members. I am Brian Mick here on behalf of the Disability and Communication Access Board and our Acting Director, Christine Pagano. DCAB supports the version of Bill 18CD1, which includes the requirement for buildings 30 feet or higher to have an elevator. The Federal Fair Housing Act requirements for accessible design applies to ground floor units and any unit that's on the floor serviced by an elevator. So the presence of the elevator is really what triggers accessible design for many units. When a project is built without an elevator, taxpayers with disabilities, including many seniors, end up subsidizing housing they cannot physically live in. Imagine I told you there was a city-subsidized project where women are not able to live on any of the upper floors. Maybe not due to a ban, but because the upper floor bathrooms only contain urinals. Or imagine a design that prevents members of a particular religion from living there. No one would consider that an appropriate design for a housing project, let alone one that's funded with public dollars. Yet in 2026, some still view it as okay to exclude people due to their disability from something as fundamental as housing. This is a chance for the council to change the trajectory of the future housing stock on the island and to state that affordability and accessibility are not exclusive. Universal design benefits people with disabilities, people with temporary injuries, seniors, pregnant people, people pushing strollers, people with heavy shopping bags, people moving furniture, first responders, and many others. DCAB urges the committee to keep the elevator requirement in and help make our island more accessible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mick. Mr. Lee, are you wanting to testify? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. My name is Spencer Lee. I work with JL Capital. So Honolulu continues to face severe shortage of affordable housing, and JL Capital is currently developing 2 Chapter 32 projects in the Ala Moana TIZ with 101 affordable rental units at 80% AMI. We respectfully urge the committee to consider restoring the proposed unit density formula for several reasons. And the first is that it makes the projects much more financeable by lenders. There's many projects that never get built because they can't, developers can't get funding for them. Secondly, the proposed unit density formula allows more units to be built within the same building envelope without requiring additional height. So in practice, most developers seek to remain below the 75-foot threshold because once you go over 75 feet, then you trigger significantly higher construction costs due to the reclassification of high-rise construction. Allowing additional units within the project's existing envelope creates more housing while preserving financial stability. And lastly, the current FAR of 4 divided by 800 calculation can result in underutilized sites or larger unit configurations that do not maximize housing production. I also wanted to comment on the building height. So I strongly urge the committee to keep the provision that allows construction up to 60 feet or the maximum building height of the underlying zoning district, whichever is greater. This removes the arbitrary ceiling that prevents more units from being built on otherwise well-zoned parcels. A 60-foot building cap where zoning permits more is wasted potential. So we believe that this should be kept as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide testimony, and thank you for your continued leadership on affordable housing.
Thank you so much. Any other persons in person in the chamber wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, let's move online. Director Apuna, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have some comments. Because this bill modifies numerous interconnected development standards, including height, yards, building area, loading, fire protection, landscaping, lot size, and permitted zoning districts, it is important that these provisions function together as a coherent regulatory
It should work now.
Okay. Sorry about that. Fire protection system. So Chapter 32 should not create parallel technical construction standards that differ from the building code because conflicting standards create uncertainty, increase permitting complexity, and may inadvertently reduce public safety. The proposed bill instead misapplies provisions from multiple NFPA standards and other unknown sources into a new hybrid fire sprinkler system that has not been evaluated as an integrated life safety system. So DPP recommends allowing the building code to govern fire protection requirements without creating conflicting ordinance provisions. Expansion into business districts. The bill expands Chapter 32 eligibility into B1 and B2 business districts. This substantially increases the number of eligible sites throughout Oahu. If this expansion is adopted, DPP recommends requiring a minimum amount of commercial space consistent with the LUO's mixed-use requirements in order to preserve the intended commercial function of these districts. Maximum building area, as drafted, Table 32A eliminates the maximum building area provided the required yards of the underlying zoning district still apply. However, the required yards of the underlying zoning district in the LUO can be 10 feet on lots where Chapter 32 allows 5-foot yards. The table does not specify which standard applies for purposes of calculating building area. Building height, DPP recommends modifying the maximum building height provisions to provide greater flexibility while respecting established special district regulations. Specifically, maximum height should be 75 feet or the underlying zoning height, whichever is greater. However, within special districts, the maximum height should be 75 feet or the underlying district height, whichever is lower. For height setbacks, DPP recommends reinstating a height setback requirement of 1 foot horizontally for every 10 feet of additional height above 40 feet, but only for buildings exceeding 60 feet in height. This balances increased housing opportunities with neighborhood compatibility, light, air, and streetscape considerations. Applicability of reduced development standards. DPP strongly recommends limiting the applicability of the reduced development standards of Section 32-3.2C1 through 7 by revising Section 32-3.2C to read the following standards apply to affordable rental housing projects with a building height of 60 feet or less and a maximum lot size of 20,000 square feet. This recommendation recognizes that the reduced standards were originally intended for relatively modest developments. Applying those same standards to significantly larger and taller buildings may compromise public safety by increasing travel distances, reducing fire resistance, and creating more challenging emergency response conditions for occupants and first responders. We also have concerns about the off-street loading and trash collection, and DPP would like to work with DTS, TRB, and ENV to modify the loading requirements. We also have comments about height, landscaping, and consistency with the building code. I apologize that my written testimony was not submitted earlier, but we have all of this covered. And then lastly, we would like to address one of the testifiers suggesting that DPP cannot issue a permit within a specified time frame, that it should be automatically issued. This characterization oversimplifies the permitting process and does not reflect the shared responsibilities between applicants and the department. While DPP is committed to continually improve review times, permit issuance depends not only on the department's and other agencies' review, but on the completeness of the application and the applicant's timely resolution of review comments. Chapter 32 projects already receive priority processing within DPP. Moreover, looking at the 15 projects that have been approved to date, the average project required 7 review cycles compared to the department's typical average of 3 to 5 review cycles for permit applications. Projects spent an average of 36 days under DPP and other agency review compared to 47 with the applicant responding to review comments and revising plans per review. So I will leave it at that. And again, the testimony will be submitted to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. First off, I just want to make it clear I'm happy you're here. I love when directors attend our hearings and when they come with a lot of suggestions and amendments that are helpful. I will say that some of your comments were pertaining to the first version, and we're on the second version, which is different, but I don't want to go through all of it here. I will look through all of the things that you said. There are various things that you said that actually have been taken out already. One of the things that you said about the 75 feet, we actually have never heard from DPP, so let's discuss that, because that's the first time I heard that 75 feet would be entertained as the height limit. But we can discuss, this is gonna come back to committee as well. So a lot of the original parts of the bill that I introduced in Bill 18 have kind of been stripped down. So we're kind of left with all of the parts that everyone agrees on. But there are still going to be a few more revisions coming through. So just thank you for being here. I will look at everything that you just said, and then we'll work together with you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, any other persons in the chamber wishing to testify? All right, let's go online. We do have Gina Thielen online. Go ahead.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Gina Thielen. I am here to testify with comments on the current version of Bill 18. I have no concerns about the bill as worded right now, other than I feel like it will not prove a substantial help to the implementation and adoption of Bill 7 by more developers in the marketplace. I have included in my written testimony a list of 5 items, one of which was just alluded to by the director regarding processing times. I think if anyone is interested in seeing broader adoption, I would encourage careful consideration of those. I do want to take a moment to just reiterate my overarching concern throughout the conversation around Bill 18, and especially in light of some of the comments I've heard in the testimony thus far. We've got to be very careful about opening Pandora's box with this issue, because this program is starting to show signs of success. And we can't afford to do something that would inadvertently cut the legs out from under it in its infancy. Thank you for the time, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Are there any other online testifiers, clerks, either registered or unregistered?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other testifiers, we are closing testimony and we are opening up discussion. So I'll start and then you guys can chime in. So first off, since the last time we heard this bill, I have visited many Bill 7 projects. I've been toured around them. I've talked with all the developers about the pros and cons of the program. I've seen the units myself. There are many buildings that, even when not required, have already put in elevators. There are many that have ADU units on the bottom. So again, a lot of them are making these decisions based off the market. They want people to rent, so they're trying to make it as accessible as possible. But again, some of those things are not mandated, but they're still including it in their buildings. I will say that by stripping down the bill to like the parts that I think will help is actually for us to help this program move along, as it's a pilot and it is going to conclude soon. So the 20,000 square feet as the footprint is sufficient, but it's very tiny. Some of these buildings could go 25,000 or maybe 30, not even up to the 40,000, even just like with a little bit of an easement, then boom, they can put in an elevator or they can put in parking or whatever else is needed by having a little bit more space. The reason why the height is important is because in areas like Makiki, where there already are buildings that are higher than 60 feet, these developers are losing out on the potential affordable units that we could have that would have already been built if they weren't under the Bill 7 project, because that height is already allowed in that area. So that's why the height is actually being considered as something that could advantage developers that are already in the pipeline. There are most of the other items that were inserted have been taken out because I've seen that many of the developers are taking the community's concerns seriously as far as providing parking. Many of the ones I went to had parking on the bottom floor, but again, it's not mandated, but I do think that they knowing that they need to get people in there and renting, they have made a lot of accommodations so that the buildings that they're building are actually very amenable, and a lot of families do want to live there. So I will say that the most recent one I went to that just broke ground is already full. So definitely there is a need for these particular rentals. And again, with the project itself concluding soon, it is a way for us to kind of help in these last couple years to see if we can't get as much as we can out of the current program. So with that being said, I will take any comments from committee members, and it is going to come back to committee. This is coming back. So there's been so many conversations. Go ahead, Councilmember Nishimoto.
Thank you so much. Contents of the bill aside, I think it would be prudent for us to wait for the UHERO report before we do anything to change the program. That's the whole point of the report, to give us feedback on what is working, what is not working. So, I'd encourage the chair to wait for decision-making until that report comes out. We can read the report, see what's in it, and maybe some of these changes make sense from the report, maybe some of them don't. But without that report, I think we may be moving a little too fast.
I will say that they brought the version of the report. Thank you, Director Auger, for bringing it. And in the report that they brought to us, which was a draft, it actually didn't address many of these concerns. It was a broad look at the program and how it benefits affordable housing. So I myself gave a 3-page summary of where I thought UHERO could go to help us with this, as opposed to talking about TOD or other things that are unrelated to the actual program, because we're actually looking at only Bill 7 and not affordable housing in the grand inventory of the city, which it was kind of going more macro than what I needed for this. So I am hoping that with the edits that I gave them, or the thoughts, that we can get some more specifics. But yes, I don't think moving out the bill in its entirety without reading through it would be good, but I didn't see anything super alarming as of what they did so far, but I agree.
And my office put in some questions for that too, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that, Chair.
Yes, definitely. Other comments from the committee or council members? Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support the committee moving the measure forward today, and appreciate all the work that's gone into it. I do think that there needs to be a lot of continued stakeholder engagement, and I just wanted to flag that I don't think the program necessarily needs to end when the current sunset date is implemented, or it's in the legislation, because we have extended it over time, and I think ultimately we want to be doing whatever works. And so I think just the progression of this program, I think, has been an example of how legislating can function best, right? Like, we began with an initial program, and it takes continued evaluation. Like, we don't just introduce bills and programs and it's one and done. And I think from where we've come from, we're seeing potential to dramatically increase the number of units available for our families. And again, this is just one of, as Chair so astutely mentioned, many different areas of housing development that we have to tackle, from TOD to everything else. And so fully support moving the measure forward as quickly as possible, and also fully support adjustments to increase the number of units available for our families, because I don't think we're quite on track to meet the 27,000 units we need by the end of next year. And so anything we can do to house our people, I'm going to be supporting that. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. I appreciate those thoughts. And, I don't know if Councilmember Nishimoto wants to make comment, but I will make comment that the majority of these projects are in his district. So I'm leaning heavily on him on this one. I do think that if there is a future affordable housing program that can kind of advantage multiple districts, I don't even have one in my district. So I think we need to look at that. It would be great for us to look at launching an affordable housing program that maybe is unique, maybe that can touch all of our districts so we can all participate. No offense, I want to participate, but I haven't been able to. So I agree that it's definitely a good tool, but at the same time, because it has largely stayed in one area, I think for Councilmember Nishimoto, listening to his constituents and his concerns is one of my top priorities for this committee. And actually almost every building I visited was in your district. And I think it's great. There's a lot of people that love it. There's a lot of community that's been built within the families that have moved into this housing. And the reason why I feel like we should move this out, and again, it'll come back to committee, is because one of the buildings that I visited broke ground December, got up the whole thing done by June, and people moved in last week. So we have the opportunity for some of these buildings right now to possibly have maybe 50 to 100 more units, which would be helpful in the overall inventory count. So that's kind of what I'm considering. I'm considering all the things that we need to take into consideration about that the weight of this pilot and what it can do, but at the same time, the fact that these buildings are moving quickly and they're housing people just as quick as they get up. So any other thoughts from the committee that you guys would like to share? Go ahead, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you. I did want to ask Director Apuna, I'm sorry if I missed her, if she brought this up. With regard to the maximum lot area of 40,000 square feet, in a previous hearing, I had asked how many apartment or business zone lots are between 20,000 and 40,000 that are currently vacant or otherwise underused. Have we done that count?
I think we did. So I can go back and get that data for you.
And was it a high number or a very low number?
I think it was a low number.
That's my recollection as well. Yeah. Okay, that is it from me for her questions. But this relates to my comment, which is, in this draft, we return to this maximum lot area of 40,000 square feet, and this is really sort of a red herring. I think in the previous analysis, there are very few, if any, lots that fall between 20,000 and 40,000 square feet that aren't already developed above and beyond what a Bill 7 project would allow. So nobody's going to be developing on a already built lot where there's already a high rise to bring it down to a Bill 7 project. I really think that this is an unnecessary regulation, and I really would like to see that taken out in a future version, because we need to get comfortable with the idea that we are creating housing in our urban core, in the apartment zones where apartments are allowed, and these sorts of red herring regulations don't really serve a purpose other than to sort of create the illusion that we're putting, some cap on it. But again, in reality, it doesn't make all that much difference, and we just need to get over that fact. With regard to the unit count formula, which was proposed to be taken out in the CD1 version here, I really do think that I would like to see this come back, whether that's at 150 or 130 or 120. I think we can have that conversation. But currently, as it's written, in ordinance right now, the unit count is written in this very strange way. It's multiplied by the maximum allowable FAR and then divided by 800. Let's simplify that. But to the extent that we're listening to our constituents, and I share Makiki, parts of Makiki and that neighborhood board with Councilmember Nishimoto, what we hear all the time is, well, these should be built near transit. We want people, if there's not going to be parking, which is a separate discussion, a separate decision that was made before this program, we want it to be near transit. Well, the only way we can incentivize it to be near transit is to actually provide incentives. And so without that, I'm not sure what we're really accomplishing here. And so I hope in a future bill that we have that formula put in. And I think over a longer term vision, having a formula in there gives us a goal and a standard for which we can base future transit decisions. High frequency, in town, 16-minute headways, and all of that. And so I think this needs a little bit more work, but I think we're getting in the right direction here, because the idea is we want more housing where it makes sense, apartments in the apartment zone, not all over the place. And I think we're getting closer here. We're not quite there, but we're getting there.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, the very beginning of your comments, you said we should take out,
the 40,000?
The 40,000, meaning that there shouldn't be
a cap, because once you let people go above 20,000, there really aren't that many lots within this range, so it doesn't really make a difference.
I guess the main concern with why people want to keep it low, and this is from many developers, is because they're trying to do infill projects. So they want to do small, tiny ones and move quickly through it, as opposed to large ones that then approach a 201H project. So I think we're trying to find a middle ground. But thank you for clarifying what you were saying. I have talked to so many people on both sides of that, so thank you. Any other comments, Councilmember Kiaʻāina?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to express my continuing concerns about this bill moving forward in its current form. You had mentioned previously, but if you don't mind, I'm just going to go through what this bill does. It provides a maximum building height of 60 feet or what is allowed in the underlying zoning district, whichever is greater. Currently, the maximum is 60 feet. It increases 20,000 square feet maximum lot area to 40,000 square feet. And it deletes the maximum building area, currently 80% of the zoning lot, and requires compliance with yard requirements of the underlying zoning district. As I stated before, affordable rental housing projects under ROH Chapter 32 were intended as low-rise apartment buildings on small zoning lots as infill development in areas that are already built out. If these projects satisfy all requirements, they can go straight to a building permit application, which may be okay for smaller projects, but not for larger projects. Large affordable rental housing projects should go through the 201H process if they need financial waivers and development standard exemptions to make the projects financially feasible. The 201H process requires discretionary approval from the council, which allows the council to consider concerns of the surrounding community, comments from other government agencies, and include conditions of approval to mitigate impacts directly attributed to the project. The proposed CD1 would also allow these projects in the business zoning district, but limits commercial establishments to the ground floor. Ordinance 25-2 allows for multi-unit dwellings in the business zoning districts if certain requirements are met. So if affordable renting housing projects are permitted in the business districts, they should be required to satisfy these requirements, not just be let loose and not have any requirements. It has to be fair. We should also consider the flexibility with fire safety standards, which affects three main areas: fire resistance construction material ratings, fire protection system coverage, and connection to the alarm system and the number and width of fire escape stairs. These provisions are substandard to code requirements and involve public safety, so questions arise as to what minimum life safety requirements are. This program was the first time across-the-board modifications were made to building code standards. This type of flexibility is not even allowed for 201H projects. In summary, it appears that there is a push to transform the original intent and target of ROH Chapter 32 from low-rise apartment buildings and small zoning lots as infill development to as of right, medium and large developments can be built quickly. However, the better way to do this may be to look at and adjust the land use ordinance development standards for various zoning districts to strategically increase development potential within the framework of the Oahu General Plan, development plans, and purpose and intent of the various zoning districts. This has already been done in Ordinance 26-7, which amends the land use ordinance to increase the development potential in the apartment and apartment mixed-use zoning districts. Also, Resolution 26-39 includes a proposal to increase the development potential in the more intense zoning districts, including the BMX4 district. Rather than attempting to transform the system, we should be supporting it. And the council is already considering other measures to strategically increase development potential while keeping safeguards in place to ensure smart and desirable growth in the city. So, Chair, I do know what you're intending, and I'm just wondering if it's the right time because we need to ensure that the current program is working, that the funds that they currently receive, DPP, is able to fulfill those who are in queue. I'm gravely concerned of a hypothetical where a single building can wipe out all of the funds in the current program. And so I just think that we all want the same thing, which is to increase the number of affordable housing units available for our communities, but it has to be done in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your thoughts. And I will say, you as well as Councilmember Dos Santos Tan doing different bills to address the LUO in general is very helpful, because that's probably even more helpful than some of the programs that we're doing, because it could basically help the whole island. So I agree with that. Secondly, the only reason we're at where we're at with this is because I got a handful of bills from multiple council members in this room touching Bill 18, from the incentives to the height to many different things. So we had to try to find a way to move forward a few things without moving forward 12 different things and then changing the program in so many different ways that it basically disadvantages people who are already in the pipeline trying to get their building up. So that's why we're at where we're at with this bill. So I do feel like actually visiting all of the projects, talking with developers, meeting with people who have struggled with DPP, figuring out where we're at and where we could do better. Really, we're basically out of time, because the program itself sunsetting in 2030, which is what the pilot was intended to do. If there is any type of alterations to this, it has to happen now or never. That's what it is. Because if it happens later, then there are too many people that are far along the pipeline that they can't change. Because these projects are basically delivered and put in the ground so fast and people are moving in, that I think that us being expeditious about this, but also prudent, is kind of where I'm going. So I'm hearing everybody's comments. I've met with so many stakeholders, and I continue to be very open to meeting with stakeholders. I'm just going to call a brief recess, and then we're going to take a vote. So brief recess, subject to the chair. Calling back to order the meeting of Parks, Housing, and Homelessness at 3:38 p.m. So we're going to conclude this conversation about Bill 18. I do think that at the end of the day, we really are going to be it's going to be hard pressed for us to find the perfect bill on this, period. I am mindful that Councilmember Nishimoto, his opinion, his constituents are actually one of the most vocal parts of us discussing this bill. And I do commit to him that between now and the next committee hearing that I will meet with more of the neighbors and community members. I will say that I've gone to multiple buildings, but this does not mean that I have walked around the neighborhoods and talked to people, and I can do that. I do understand that this program has been beneficial to many families who have moved into these, but also we are talking about neighborhoods, areas, we're talking about the impact of it in general. So my feeling, based upon a lot of work that went into this, is that we should move this out, and that it's going to come back here to committee, and that hopefully on that next version, the UHERO report will be out. I will have some time to meet and take into consideration more of the community voices, and then come up with the best version of whatever we can do on this last push for this particular program, which is called Bill 7 or Chapter 32. So council members, I recommend that Bill 18, 2026 be amended to the posted proposed CD1 identified at OCS 2026-0383/6/15/2026-117 PM. So that's the most recent version that I posted. Are there any objections?
Thank you, Chair. To be frank, this bill has gotten worse, not better, for my constituents. You said it yourself. My community is the one that overwhelmingly is bearing the brunt of this program. There are success stories, but there are a lot of ones that the community does not like and has had many problems with. For those reasons, I'll be voting no.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Any other objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. The chair then recommends that Bill 18, 2026 CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. It will come back to this committee. We are not finalized with this bill yet, so thank you everyone for your patience. Any further discussion? Oh, for the final or for the CD? Oh, let's do a roll call vote for the CD, and then we'll do a roll call vote for the final. So if we could, for the CD of Bill 18, I vote yes. Vice Chair Toba? Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Nishimoto? Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
Thank you. And for the passage of Bill 18, CD1, Councilmember Toba? Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Nishimoto? Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you so much. The bill then recommends, following this vote, the hearing will be scheduled for the next full council, and then we will hear it in the next Housing, Parks, and Homelessness Committee. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to our last item, number 10, informational briefing, general overview of the Department of Housing and Land Management. A copy of the department's presentation was distributed, and it is also available online as Departmental Communication D 4/20/2026. With us, we have Director Kevin Auger, Director of Department of Housing and Land Management.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Tupola and honorable council members. Kevin Auger, Director of the Department of Housing and Land Management. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this informational briefing this afternoon. The administration presented its strategic housing plan to the council last January. That plan focused on 5 strategic areas: reorganizing the city's housing functions, expanding public-private partnerships to support development on city-owned lands, creating a new financing tools and support affordable housing development, activating transit-oriented development areas along the Skyline route, and housing policy analysis to understand what's working, what's not, and what can or should be changed to increase housing production. The reorganization that resulted in the consolidation of city housing functions and the creation of the Department of Housing and Land Management was completed just over 1 year ago, last May, pursuant to Resolution 25-86. DHLM now combines the functions of the former Office of Housing and the Department of Land Management into a single department responsible for leading the city's efforts to expand affordable housing opportunities, strategically manage city-owned lands, and to conserve natural and cultural resources. We work closely with our city departments, state agencies, federal partners, nonprofit organizations, and the private sector stakeholders to align land use, infrastructure financing, and development opportunities with the city's long-term housing and community development goals. We also administer several of the city's key housing and land management programs, including the Affordable Housing Fund, the Private Activity Bond Program, the Clean Water and Natural Lands Program, affordable housing development initiatives on city-owned lands, and all city real estate acquisition and disposition activities. Over the last year, we've assembled an extraordinary leadership team of dedicated, highly talented, and passionate individuals to advance DHL initiatives. These include Deputy Director Catherine Tashner, Gavin Thornton, who leads our Housing Policy Division, Jennifer Ontai, who leads our Land Transactions Division, Elsa Kings, who heads up our Housing Development Division, David Oy, who leads our Housing Finance Division, and Van Matsushige, who leads our Clean Water and Natural Lands Office. During 2025 and 2026, the department completed $28 million in acquisitions, $146 million in financing. We currently manage 1,400 housing units, 60 leases are under our oversight, and we have 70 active transactions in our workflow. Most importantly, we've developed a pipeline of 2,500 units for affordable housing. On the asset management side, of those 1,400 units, approximately 750 of them are located in Chinatown. The average age of that portfolio is approximately 41 years old. And with that aging portfolio becomes a requirement to manage some significant capital improvement programs. We currently have, for example, 3 important capital improvement programs underway at Gateway Plaza, Marin Tower, and Harbor Village, totaling approximately $25 million. These improvement programs are led by the department with our third-party property managers. In addition to all of that work, we also oversee a portfolio of 60 leases, and we're scheduled to pick up another additional 25 from the Department of Community Services during July of 2027. Last year, we had a number of significant transactions. We closed on the Kiaʻāina Village with private activity bonds that supported the development of 127 units of housing. That project is scheduled to have its grand opening in December this year. In October last year, we closed on $124 million worth of financing. That was a package of private activity bonds and affordable housing fund. That was for the Hawaii Public Housing Authority and their partner, Highridge Costa, to support the first phase of the Kuhio Park Terrace redevelopment and 300 units of housing. On behalf of DCS, we completed the acquisition of 222 North School Street and Stillman Lane. That acquisition was roughly $12 million. We completed and closed 819 South Baratania for the Honolulu Police Department. And we closed on the pre-development agreement and ground lease for the Kiaʻāina Place development, which will deliver approximately 42 units. We also recently provided $1.2 million in affordable housing funds to support that project. And lastly, we completed the Pico Ridge Conservation Easement, which was $1.7 million. So those were our activities over the last year. What we really want to talk about is the work we have going forward. For 2026 and 2027, let me give you those off the podium. Our current workflow has over 70 active projects. These include 15 development projects, 12 acquisitions that are currently underway, 5 finance projects, 22 grants of easement, 8 office leases that we're negotiating on behalf of other departments, 4 rights of entries, and 6 disposals. Totals over 70 transactions. Some of these transactions have been in our portfolio for over 25 or 30 years. So we're trying to clean up the old stuff as much as we're initiating programs to develop new stuff. I want to give you an example of the complication of some of these transactions just for awareness. The KPT multifamily housing revenue bond note that we closed, for instance, that transaction started in February of last year. It had weekly closing calls. We had over 70 participants on those calls, the majority of them attorneys, and the project closed in October. So really substantial, very time-consuming. These are not transactions that go easily. Coming up, and I put these in chronological order so you can understand just how much volume we're working through right now. We've got a Palawai conservation easement that's scheduled to close on June 30th. On June 30th, we're also scheduled to close 519 Kiaʻāina Street. That's the project, the property there with the red star in it. That supports our TOD development around the Coulee Rail Station. On July 30th, we're scheduled to close on the Hawaii Blood Bank building on Dillingham Road for the Department of Emergency Services. On August 17th, we're scheduled to close on the North Shore Sharks Cove property for the Department of Ocean Safety. On September 17th, we're scheduled to close on Monowili Makaʻili. That project is really important because when we look at the Palawai projects and the Ma'awili conservation easement transactions, they support state and county conservation efforts to preserve the larger Monowili Valley. The addition of these two conservation easements will bring the total conservation easement area in that region to over 1,000 acres, which is really substantial. On September 28th, we're scheduled to close on 581 Dillingham Road. That's the former Tony's gas station at Ala Street and Dillingham Road. Sometime during November or December, we're scheduled to close on the Waialua Fire Station with the Kona lows that we experienced and the impact of the station on the North Shore. That's an important acquisition for us and the Department of the Fire Department. In January 2027, we're scheduled to close on 513 Ka'ahi Street. In January 27, we're also scheduled to close on 921 Ka'amanu Street. Councilmember Tyler DeSantos Tam, that's the Min Metals, Min Plastics closing. That's a very important acquisition for us. And then on July of next year, 2027, we are scheduled to close on 525 Ka'ahi Street. That closing is taking a little bit more time because the current occupant requires a little bit more time for the relocation. But when we look at all of those acquisitions in the Iwalei area to support our efforts to activate the Coulee Rail Station and TOD development in that area, if you look at the slides, all of those land parcels in somewhat orange, I guess, with red stars will be properties that are under city control. So we've made an extraordinary effort to make impact into that area so that we can begin the redevelopment effort. In addition, our 2027 acquisitions include an affordable, and these have not been announced yet, they've not been publicly announced yet, but we're working on an affordable housing acquisition for $60 million, a forward commitment to acquire a to-be-built affordable housing project for $70 million, and affordable and a ground lease to support affordable housing redevelopment that's $14 million. The total of those acquisitions comes to about $145 million, and that will completely deplete our CIP funding for 2026 and 2027. The nice thing about these transactions, if we can't complete them, we can fill in the gaps of any remaining CIP monies by acquiring properties within the Coulee Rail Station area. So we can use that to backfill. So we want to be, we don't want to lapse CIP money. We want to use it effectively, and we want to make certain that we're using it aggressively. In addition, the department, to clear the way for all this housing development, we've become demolition experts. We completed the demolition of 1650 Alawai last July. 1930 Dillingham, which is the former Delight Bakery site, that demolition is currently in progress. On 436 Anna Road in Waikiki, we just received the demo permit to take that building down today from DPP. Thank you very much. And the Iwalei Center demolition is planned for the first or second quarter of 2027, depending on how the progress of the relocation of existing tenants goes. All of the leases at the Iwalei Center are scheduled to expire on January 31st next year. But if we have any holdouts or holdovers, that could delay the demolition of the project. I think most importantly, one of our really key initiatives that we highlighted in the strategic plan and talked about at some length last year was leveraging public lands to support development. As we previously reported, the Department of Housing and Land Management worked with the Governor's Office to amend the Governor's Emergency Proclamation for Housing to allow the department to issue requests for qualifications versus requests for proposals when soliciting development partners to build housing on city land. This allowed the department to streamline the solicitation process to secure development partners. to build on existing property. And many of those properties in our portfolio have been dormant or vacant for decades. We're pleased to report that we've selected preferred negotiating partners in negotiating development agreements and ground leases for the following city-owned properties. 1650 Alawai, which is a property that we condemned and basically took back. We're working with Center Urban to develop 40 units on that site. They hope to break ground in March of next year. 4036 Enna Road, which we just discussed. We're working with EAH Housing, and we expect to build approximately 125 units on that site. It's a very exciting development. 130 South Paratania Street, which is the former Kamali'i Mini Park. That project, we're working with Pacific Housing and Lanakila Pacific, and we estimate that we can accommodate approximately 125 units on that site. We really like this transaction because 30% of those units will be reserved for individuals with disabilities, which is very exciting. The Evilay Center, which we just discussed, is scheduled for demolition in the first quarter next year, and we're working with EAH Housing on that site. We anticipate that we can accommodate 850 to 900 units on that property, and that will be developed over phases depending on the financial resources to accommodate development. Kapolei lots 2 through 5, we're working with the Kobayashi Group and the Ahi Group, and the estimated total number of units for delivery there is 744. As the council may know, we worked with this team on lots 6 and 7, which were highly successful. They've opened, they're operating, and we want to get underway with the next phase. The former Delight Bakery, and we've put this slide together. Justin Lamasa, our PIO, helped put this together. If you can see the red line on the left-hand side of the page, the rail station footprint is like right in the middle of Dillingham Road, so you can get a sense for just how close that building is to the rail station. It's literally right on top of it. We're working with EAH Housing again on that development, and we anticipate that we can accommodate 150 units on that site. We're also working on the Mililani Park and Ride, which has been in our portfolio for 25 years or so, and the Royal Kania Park and Ride. We've selected preferred negotiating partners for those 2 developments, but we haven't announced them yet because we're trying to get through the negotiation of the other pre-development agreements and ground leases. When we look at the total of those properties, it comes up to 2,488 units of potential housing that we'll now have in the pipeline under development. And that, I can say pretty confidently, is unprecedented in the city's history. If you take a look at our early estimates, which were basically desktop analysis, which was essentially me trying to do the back of the napkin to understand how many units we could support on these properties, we came up to roughly 2,300. The development community has been a little bit more aggressive, and they think we can get closer to 2,500. In addition to all of that work, the department recently closed on 175 North Pauahi Street, right on River Street in Chinatown. This is a property that had roughly 40 units of housing. I think there were 4 people living in it, so it was basically unoccupied for the last decade or so. This is a redevelopment effort that the department is leading itself. So we've acquired the building for roughly $4.5 million. We're currently working with G70 to develop a design for the property. We believe we can deliver 47 smaller studios in that area, which are really required, in addition to 6 commercial spaces on the ground floor. The nice part about this development is the existing retail customers on the ground floor, the retail leases. We're going to move those right next door to Winston Holly, so we can activate that ground space, which is currently vacant, and then we'll backfill this site when the development's complete. We expect to get permits and be in construction hopefully by December, January next year. In addition to that, the city is providing approximately $123 million worth of its 2023 private activity bonds to support the state's redevelopment of mayor-right homes. The Hawaii Public Housing Authority and its partner High Ridge Costa anticipate that they'll be closing in December this year on the first phase, which will deliver 911 units. That total development will support 2,448 units. So it's an important development for the area. In addition to that, in the meantime, right across the street from Mayor Wright, we continue the planning efforts for the Quilly Skyline Rail Station, which is currently underway. As you may recall, the city applied for and was awarded a $2 million TOD planning grant from the FTA, Federal Transportation Authority, with an additional $700,000 provided by the State Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, and a further $250,000 provided by the Department of Planning and Permitting. This planning project is being led by DTL Hawaii and BDP Quadrangle from Toronto. This is a highly collaborative effort that includes several city departments and state agencies, in addition to private landowners in the area. We're really excited and look forward to bringing out more of that master planning effort over the next 3 months or so, and we can share some better pictures than this one. But all of that is really important, because if you look at the city's influence in this area, with the redevelopment of Mayor Wright, the city's 125-ish million of private activity bonds going to support that development, the activity that we currently have underway around the Quilly, surrounding area around the Quilly Rail Station, work that we're doing in Chinatown, we have a couple of significant initiatives that we'll be rolling out over the next few months to try to reactivate some of the vacant buildings in downtown. When you walk through Chinatown, Fort Street Mall, the second floor of those buildings are roughly abandoned, and we need to do more to activate the retail space in that area. And we're working through that now. We're working with the governor's office to include both the historic Chinatown area and the area around the International Cultural Plaza, to include those in opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are unique in that they allow investors to potentially defer capital gains from investment. So we're we're undertaking an effort to develop investment possibilities that will meet investor profiles, and that's something that we'll be rolling out over the next few months. We're also applying for a HUD pro-housing grant for $10 million so that we can support perhaps another redevelopment or rehab in the Chinatown area. So a lot of effort in Chinatown right now. Community engagement remains, a very important part of all that we do. We require all of our development partners, for instance, when they're developing public land, to work with the communities, to hear their feedback, and to ensure that we're doing the right thing by our constituents. Expanding affordable housing funding sources also remains a very significant part of our activity. With 2,500 units of housing potentially in our pipeline now, finding a way to support those developments beyond financing them with CIP or general obligation bonds, private activity bonds, or the Affordable Housing Fund is really essential, because those resources just will not provide enough for us to do everything that we want to do. So as you may recall, we worked with the Center for Public Enterprise, who came to Hawaii. This is a national nonprofit research firm that's doing some great work on the mainland. One of their initial initiatives is referred to as the Montgomery County model. We brought them out to see how that potential financing model could work in Hawaii. I think they had an opportunity to meet with several council members and our state legislative partners. More to come on that, but developing alternative forms of financing is just extremely high on our priority list. On the housing policy side, our policy team is hard at work, and they work with housing advocates in the development community to understand and promote housing policy that will remove barriers to the housing delivery. This includes providing policy support for 3 distinct pathways. One is large-scale city-driven developments, our 201H type programs. Second is low and mid-size rentals and infill locations, such as we just talked about, Bill 7, Bill 18. And equally important, incremental missing middle housing, which includes ADUs, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, et cetera. Those types of developments have been basically legislated out of existence the last 20 to 25 years. And we want to take a hard look at how we can allow smaller developers in infill locations to build the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, And we know that financing alternatives don't really exist for that type of product, but we may be able to step up and provide a financing program to stimulate that type of development. That's something that we're looking close at. The team is also working at improving our data around housing project pipelines, understanding what's in the pipeline, what's planned, proposed, under development, and what's been completed. We're looking at process improvements, infrastructure opportunities, constraints and funding, and other tax and fee tools that could help facilitate the delivery of housing. Some of those process changes underway have already been completed. One is the project that we completed with UHERO last January to develop a subsidized housing explorer, and that's available online and is currently active. We are, as you know, developing a real property inventory. I think that this effort's being led by Kara Chucham, the Chief Data Officer for the city. I've seen some early iterations of it. It's very exciting, particularly with the potential use of AI in the equation to understand what's in our inventory. As a disclaimer up front, one of the challenges that we do have, however, is that the quality of the data is only as good as the quality of the data. So when we go through that information, some of it's very old, some of it's outdated, TMKs don't align, et cetera. So there's going to be some challenges to this for sure, but I understand that we're supposed to be seeing an overview of this product within the next few weeks. So we're excited about that. On the clean water and natural land side, just wanted to share out for the committee that we currently have, I think we have 13 acquisitions underway with Makali'i. Palawai will be up to 15. That's a total conserved area of 1,343 acres and a total investment of $35 million. But more importantly, transactions that we have in the pipeline for clean water and natural lands, I think there's another 11 transactions totaling an area nearly double in size, with a total estimated investment amount of $52 million. So we've got quite a few transactions in the pipeline, and we look forward to reviewing those as the Clean Water and Natural Lands Committee recommends those. We have just a short video. Does this play by itself? You have to do some things. Just highlighting some of the great experiences we had over the last year. Is there sound? Is there sound? Maybe not.
Sound's coming on this picture.
Well, why don't we just cut to the end? Nobody can hear it. Trust me, it's a great video, great production quality. We really enjoyed it and hope to show it to you sometime. That's all we have. Mahalo. There's an appendix that we've attached to the back of this presentation. We wanted to be able to get through this quickly, but it provides almost a month-by-month overview of the activities of the department, and you can see how we've grown. Our effort is really to push housing development, and we're looking forward to a great year this year and next. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Director. You really outdid yourself with the 82 slides and the video. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so any questions, council members? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair Tupola. Hi, Director Alger. Thank you for your
Hello.
presentation. I really like the appendix especially, so I hope that others can take a look at that. It's a great overview, I should say. I do have a question about looking at the different areas in the town area or near and around TOD areas, because right now we're looking at areas that have just one block. We're taking care of one block, like for Delight Bakery, just for example. And then there's other parts of that block that have HART easements or whatever it may be. Are we looking to possibly forging a partnership with HART to then build up on those properties as well, like the former service printers or opposite of Delight Bakery?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there are so many things that we want to do. If you look at that current pipeline, we've got literally a transaction a month closing over the next 7 or 8 months. We're really making we want to be able to concentrate our efforts where we can be impactful. And so we've made a conscientious decision that one of the places that we could really be impactful is in the Evila area. So we're concentrating our focus on activating that TOD area around the Quilly Rail Station. We would love to do more around the Delight site. The challenge that we have is capacity. We can't close, 5 transactions a month. It just doesn't work. We also, as I mentioned, the transactions that we're currently looking at will fully consume our CIP resources for the next couple of years. So, we in the past, I think the department we've lapsed funding and significant funding, right? And we recognize that, and we've been trying to be very conscientious about that going forward, because we'd rather come back to council and say, hey, last year we ran out of money, and we'd like to have more, not that we didn't spend enough, and roll it over again. So the short answer is, with respect to activating TOD, we're really focused on the Quilly Rail Station right now. We're working with the AH. We're taking the building, that building should be down within a month so we can start the redevelopment effort for the Delight site. Where we can, we will continue to fill in other locations, but it's just not high on the priority list right now. We've just too many things going on.
I understand, and I'm not looking to see that done like in the next even 10 years or so. I'm just looking at it because we do have the opportunity with the blood bank just down the road, as well as the landing of area of the transit station, and we already have 3 corners of the block there already available for us. So once again, not looking for it to be something prioritized in the immediate. I understand that Kuwili can be a roadmap for things like that, but I think it would be good to, I guess, have, I don't want to say on the back burner because I don't think it's a back burner thing, but like something that we can copy and paste on a smaller scale in comparison to Kuwili, since it's just down the road from it.
If I could comment on that, so our efforts are focused on 3 fronts. The first front is cleaning up the old stuff, right? So a lot of these transactions that we're now partnering with development partners, some of these properties have been in our portfolio 20 or 30 years. So we want to get that stuff cleaned up. And then there's other stuff that we're cleaning up. And I provided a couple of bullet points on those. Some of these deals that have been floating around for 10, 15, 20 years that we're just trying to get cleaned up. Folks have been kicking the can down the road, so we're trying to take care of that stuff. We're also really focused on the administration's current initiatives, which are activating public lands, trying to find additional ways and alternative ways to finance, activating TOD. And then to your point, Councilmember, about 10 years down the road, we're also, the third front that I'm working on is trying to establish a platform that's making up for 30 years of neglect that will stand up for the next 30 years, right? And that's really important to us. So getting our team leaders in place, building the platform out, getting the right people, continuing to train and tool and train those folks so that we can create cookie cutter type transactions that we can continue to roll out in the future. That's really important to us. And I have 30 months to do that. So we're trying to get all that done in the next 2.5 years.
I understand. And Director, one last question, Chair. I know that you mentioned here, or on the slides here for North Pauahi Street, I know it's not in my district, but it is interesting that we have the proposed 47 affordable housing units and 6 commercial. And the 6 commercial is like what's on the ground floor, yeah? Is that flexible in any way, or is that just what's available due to the height and just zoning limitations?
Yeah, so we took that project on directly as the department, working directly on this. We bought it, we're gonna scrape it down. It's concrete shell, so it's really difficult to screw up, but it needs all new systems. We're putting those in place. We're trying to comply, we have to comply with the Chinatown historic building requirements. We want to do it as reasonable at a reasonable cost as possible, so we can keep these units affordable. They're all studio apartments. Some of them are around 400 square feet. We have several that are about 250 square feet. They're almost more like SROs. But importantly, I think for the city, when I go by that site, one of the reasons that we acquired that building in particular, it's right on River Street, right? So it's got frontage there, but the city owns about 85% of the balance of that block. And when I drive by North Hotel Street or I'm heading up North King Street, it's unfortunate that because that area is not activated, that corner, Hotel and River, is just a magnet for homeless folks. There's an alcove between the River Street property and it's the Hale, what's the called?
Hawaii Senior Center.
Thank you. And folks just congregate there. And so one of the design aspects of what we're doing is how do we fix that? How do we activate that space so it's just not a place for people to congregate? Because it looks horrible when you're driving up North King. And so we're working through all of that.
Thank you, Director Alger, and thank you, Chair, for letting me ask questions.
Yep, no problem. Other questions, council members? Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Director. You mentioned at 175 North Pauahi Street, we're moving the existing commercial tenants to Winston Hale. I think that's great, activating the space a little bit more. But the challenge has also always been how to do leasing in city-owned buildings in Chinatown. So can you walk me through kind of that process of moving these tenants and the difficulties that may still exist for leasing out city spaces?
Yeah, so in that particular instance, Winston Hale is a property that's owned by the city, so that we have the ability to relocate these folks. And it is a requirement when the government, when the county acquires a property, there's a relocation requirement under both state and federal law. In this instance, it's under state law. Quilly Rail Station, for instance, that's under federal law, so it's a whole different can of worms. But we're literally just going to move those folks into Winston Hale and provide them with 3-year leases. And it kills two birds with one stone because we get to activate that frontage, and then once we're complete with the development, we can backfill the existing space.
I'm going to appoint Councilmember Dos Santos Tam as a member of the committee. Please proceed.
Thank you. And so to that point, if we're able to do a 3-year lease for these tenants, why can we not do 3-year leases in the city-owned spaces in Marin Tower or the other city-owned spaces in Chinatown?
So we've taken the view that as an obligation of the relocation requirement, in this instance, we're just simply making an exception because we have to put them somewhere. But we do agree, Chapter 38 needs to be revised. We've done a complete rewrite of Chapter 38. That's Bill 35, which is pending. Unfortunately, if it's the Department of Housing and Land Management's motivation for revising or recommending proposed amendments to that chapter was driven primarily by the need to, or the desire to issue requests for qualifications for development partners. Working with the governor's office, we were able to achieve that under the governor's emergency proclamation. So the urgency for at least our department, was minimized a little bit. Chapter 38 also impacts several other departments, including the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services, the Department of OER has got comments to that department, and the Department of DITA's department, which runs the Bladesdale and all that good stuff. So we are still quarterbacking those proposed amendments, but we need to get those folks together in a room to kind of sort through that and get that resolved.
So I definitely appreciate that explanation. I think it makes a lot of sense for the folks that are under the URA provisions to get them relocated. Now, does this apply to all city-owned properties outside of Chinatown as well? If we have to relocate people, we can have exceptions, but if there's not a change in the use or a change in the redevelopment, we would have a more difficult time filling vacant spaces.
I think we would generally have more of a difficult time. In this instance, it was just incredibly convenient because we literally owned the retail space next door, and it was vacant.
So if the city were to acquire a new building that the city didn't otherwise have, which is envisioned in, say, this upcoming budget, and we would have a difficult time filling those commercial spaces unless there were redevelopment there, which I understand community members don't want.
If I think I'm understanding your question correctly, if we acquired a property that it was mixed use and had retail, we would have a difficult time leasing that.
Yeah,
I agree. And so we're continually, we're doing a lot of mixed use now. We anticipate doing a lot of mixed use around the Quilly Rail Station. Delight Bakery has got the potential to have a really nice retail format on the ground floor. And so that will accelerate, that'll put us back in the driver's seat to create some urgency around getting some Bill 38 resolved.
Thank you. It just seems strange to me that we as the council were collectively so enthusiastic about acquiring a new property in this upcoming budget, and yet we are dragging our feet and letting any proposals to activate those spaces languish. It just seems very strange and almost hypocritical to me.
Yeah, well, and it's also not sustainable, right? If you look, you know, when I walk through, I think we all agree, when we walk through downtown Chinatown, we own a majority of the buildings in that area, right? And we can't activate that space. Something's got to give. And so, you know, one of the potential investment programs that we're looking at is how can we know opportunity zones in Hawaii don't work for housing. But when the state sponsored an opportunity zone forum a couple of weeks ago, and when we talked to some of the advisors and the investors that were attending that forum, one of the things that popped up was that opportunity zones do work when they're married with historic tax credits. And so they asked us, do you have any properties that could be acquired and converted using historic tax credits? And we almost fell out of our seat because we've got all of downtown Chinatown. So working in that opportunity zone context, trying to find ways to marry historic tax credits with new market tax credits so we can activate the retail space, potentially convert the upper floors of Chinatown buildings to residential, like we did when we supported the Hawking Hale conversion with our affordable housing funds. I think that's a real potential winner, and it's an investment profile that I think would be very attractive to a lot of investors who are looking to defer capital gains. So that's something that we're going to be looking at, and that will require a revision to Chapter 38 under Bill 35.
Okay, any other questions from council members? I want to make sure that we end this at 4:30. So I'm going to ask a few questions. You don't need to answer. I'm going to send this to you guys written. That way you guys have time to respond. First off, you know, there was a brief slide in there, I don't know what page it was, about gathering community feedback. And it actually said kapolei, I think it said kapolei lots or parcels or something like that. And I just wanted to make mention that I do think that that's something that your department needs to continue to work on. You know, I do think that with each of the council members having one of their priorities, if not a few of their priorities, and working alongside them, for me, that particular project that was in that slide, we've had, yes, awesome gains with the Kobayashis, but there's been lots of problems with that property adjacent to the other properties, people getting broken into, just basically, if we're going to do it again, we really have to learn from what happened, because I think after we put up some of these housing projects, especially the new ones, because you guys have some older inventory, we got to continue to do the community outreach on it because it's new. We are facing a lot of problems. There's not a lot of mitigation, and then we're on to the next project. The next thing that I'll write in my letter as well is I'm looking forward to hearing about the vacant city inventory. That'll be great. Sounds like it'll be ready soon. I also wanted to know what city-state projects are in this pipeline. I know we mentioned, you know, Gov's this, we're gonna that, but any city-state projects that we're working on could potentially be less of a lift for us. I know that possibly the one on the east side that Councilmember Kiaʻāina was working on with DHHL is probably not a go, but there might be other ones that we could partner on with DHHL perhaps. I also thought that what Councilmember Cordero brought up in regards to TOD is something significant because we basically are kind of missing the mark on it, but it's kind of somewhere between Hart and between you guys as far as, you know, who could spearhead how we're utilizing all the properties. I mean, we're about to acquire a huge property in Kapolei for a parking lot. So it could be more than a parking lot, but, you know, I think thinking through all of our TOD pieces as they move forward, because they're happening now, and now is a good time for us to insert housing conversations. It'd be cool if there was some specific housing TOD policy plans for the whole area and not just like kind of piecemeal. Last the last three questions that I'll write in a letter is just wanting to know who in the office tracks legislative proposals and bills. I'm having a town hall with the Senate and the House housing chairs, but I think knowing what the state is trying to do and kind of moving in tandem with them is pretty important, just because some of them are actually disadvantaging us, and I think we have to be at the forefront of that discussion. I think I'm looking forward to the policy pathways, the one slide you had that you guys are going to kind of share with us, maybe different policy initiatives. That's something that we could definitely help on our side, introducing legislation, or even, say, for example, Bill 1035, maybe editing or getting through legislation that you think would be helpful to your department. And lastly, we continue to have no clean water, natural land projects in my district. I put forward a few. I would love to see at least one, but I do congratulate you guys on getting a lot up. It would be good if there was also some on the West Side District. It seems to be just all North Shore, Windward Side, and a few in East Honolulu. So if there could be a little bit more equity, I guess, in how the projects are approved, because I did introduce a lot of, cultural groups to Deputy Director Tashner. I haven't seen anything move on my side, but we can continue those conversations. But as I look at the map and see millions of dollars being expended everywhere else, but certain districts, I think we should think through some of that for the clean water, natural land. So you can make any comments, but I'll write this down. I know that was a lot.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, council members. If there being no further discussion, clerks, are there any testifiers online or in person?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, seeing no testifiers and there being no other agenda items, we are now adjourned.